Hello and welcome to Tom Reads Books. It's been a hot minute since I've uploaded a video on YouTube, but I don't want you to think for 1 second that I'm not taking this channel very seriously. I've been reading a lot in the last few months, and I'm going to be talking about those books today. It's probably some of the best books I've ever read, and I'm going to redo my top 10 books of all time relatively soon. And I think some of the books that I've read, I think they're going to be knocking out some big hitters up in the top 10 that was in my list a few months ago. So I'm going to be talking to you about that today. Also, I really have been trying to record more. I've just been enjoying reading too much, and I think that's part of the problem with making content on something that you enjoy, is that it ends up sort of getting in the way, sorry, of the time you have to do the thing you want to talk about in front of a camera. So I've kind of been a bit bored, and I've been a bit going like, oh, do I really have to talk about the book? I just want to read more, which is great. I've kind of enjoyed doing that. But it has highlighted a little bit about this channel, about what is it that I'm trying to do here. And I had a great chat with my wife, Laura, a few months ago, and she came up with this amazing idea to do with books, to do with this channel in a way. And she had this great idea. Why don't we do this? And it's a great idea. I will be talking about this great idea. I'll say great idea one more time. Great idea. We'll be talking about this plan in, I don't know, probably next year, probably the beginning of next year is when I will sort of talk a little bit more about it and announce it as well on social media. I'm not really sure how many people will watch this video or how many people actually, sit through past the 2 minute mark on this. I don't really know. But if you are interested, I'll do an announcement on this channel about what we're going to be doing. It is related to books and talking about books, but perhaps with other people as well. But more on that later. For now, I'm going to carry on doing my vlogs on this channel and just sort of putting down my ideas. And it's quite a nice way of marking the end of a book for me. When I finish a book, I will update it on my Goodreads that I have, and I will also write it down in this little book here, Tom's Book Journal, which I think I showed off in a previous video. And I'll just write a few thoughts. If the book's particularly long, I'll sort of jot a few notes down as I'm reading as well. I used to write in books as well and write in the front cover, just on the cover page. I used to write, Tom Wainwright. I used to write my thoughts and give it like a star rating, which I kind of like, because I thought, if anyone, if I sort of, years to come, sort of pass away and my books get chucked into a charity shop, someone else can just be like, oh, that's fun. Someone else has properly read this book and it used to be theirs, and I don't know, that's quite cool. But I don't really do that anymore. I'm going to go through some books now. But firstly, I need to apologise for my voice. I've been off work sick with this flu, and I was meant to go back to work tonight to the show, but I just didn't feel up to it. I kind of got to the afternoon and just felt a bit rough. So I thought I would take one more night just to try and have a good night's sleep, get ready, so I can crack on with the Christmas shows. Because the team back at the theatre have just been holding the fort as loads of us have been off sick. So yeah, feeling a bit run down, but excited to talk about books. So that's what we're going to do now. Also, the lighting in here is quite bizarre. Because of this great idea that my wife had and this plan that will be announced on this channel next year, we needed some gear, including things like this, little microphones, and also lights as well. I've deliberately put the lights on just to use them, although I've not set them up properly, so there's some shadows and it's quite intense, I think. I've not really bothered to look, but they're quite weird. It's just like right there, glaring at me. So apologies if this is very uncomfortable to not only listen to, but to look at as well. Enjoy the rest of the content. So I'm going to clip this bad boy here. It'll probably fall down. Oh no, we're doing good. Great. So the last time I chatted to you guys about the books that I was reading, I think it ended with, if I'm not mistaken, it finished, I think, with Dungeon Crawler Carl, book number 3, which was called The Anarchist's Cookbook. I was listening to that the narration's done by Jeff Hayes, and it's just brilliant. They're really fun books, and I gave it a 4-star. I kind of, when I'm listening to those stories, the Dungeon Crawler Carl world, I kind of think all of it is just 5 star. I'm just so wrapped up in the story and the fast-paced, enjoyable, quite silly, but then also quite dramatic storytelling that I end up being like, this is just fantastic. And yes, I won't always want to be in this sort of high octane world. And I do occasionally crave, I don't know, wanting to read like a classic or a bit of a historical fiction. But I'm just like, this is 5 star. I've signed up to this genre, this lit RPG fantasy, and it's great. It's doing its job. It's 5 stars. And then after about a few days after finishing these books, I go, okay, that was a 4 star. Like there were definitely areas which I didn't enjoy as much as others. It wasn't flawless, which I think a 5 star is. But I gave that 4 stars, and I said, fun! Exclamation mark. Bit of heat with Carl nearly dying. That sounds like a spoiler. Probably shouldn't say that. Spoilers. But also, I said the political intrigue was really amped up. And then I went on to talk about Manacled by Senjin Liu, which I did not finish. That was my first ever DNF on this channel. I did not finish it. Yeah, I really didn't enjoy it. I talked about that in a previous video. And then I think, sorry, the last book I talked about was Dungeon Crawler Carl book 4, which was The Gate of the Feral Gods. I did give this 5 stars, mainly because it was a really fun concept in this quite crazy series. I'm now on the 8th book now. But it was a really fun series, really silly. But the ending, I keep on talking whenever I talk about this. I love this series because of the political intrigue. There's something going on. It's not just on the surface. There's something going on. And there's this speech at the end when Carl speaks to the people who run this game, this murderous game. He speaks to them and everyone's listening. Trillions of people across the universe is listening, tuned in to this speech. And it's so powerful. It's a real fuck yeah moment. It's great stuff. So I gave that 5 stars. I then went on. Oh, sorry. I think actually. Oh yeah, Gate of Feral Gods. Yeah. So that was book 4. I gave that 5 stars. I then listened to the next 2. So books number 5 and 6 in the Dungeon Crawler Carl world. I listened to The Butcher's Masquerade. Gave that 5 stars. Drops down to 4. Then I listened to The Eye of the Bedlam Bride. This one, I gave it 4 stars straight away. I actually didn't give it 5 stars. It was really fun. The political intrigue, sorry, that I always talk about was amped up to another level. Like it was in there, and we were hearing things that we'd been thinking about for a while, going, "Wait, why is this happening? What's this about? What's the goal? What's happening?" It was all coming out, and some really sad things happened. And the want for revenge was so strong. And Matt Dinman's great, the writer. He's so good at just giving you little bits, but not quite enough. And you really want people to hurt, and he's so good at doing that. Some amazing voice acting in The Eye of the Bedlam Bride by Jeff Hayes. Some really emotional scenes, and it was really well done. Yeah, and oh my word, it was just marvelous. I then went on holiday, and that was about 6 weeks ago. I went on holiday, and just before I went on holiday, I was like, right, I have done a video, I think, about books that I'm excited to read, and I looked back at that video. I was like, great, this is what I can sort of pick to certain books to take on holiday, and I'm really excited to, crack on with my reading list, my to be read list. None of the books on that list excited me at all, except one, which had been staring at me for a long while. And the brothers Gwyn, who are a fantastic duo, who are actually brothers, who have a great booktube account. One of the brothers, his name's Ed. He said this is potentially one of his favourite books ever written, and it's The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a vampire story. Stephen Graham Jones, I believe, is a Native American, and he writes, I think, about quite a lot of American, sort of Native American stories. This is a vampire story. It's also historical fiction as well, and I thought I knew what this was about when I was starting to read it, and I got a few things right. It is nothing. I've read nothing like this ever. in my life. I just a spoiler alert, I gave this 5 stars. This is one of the best books I've ever read. Just because it's so unique. I've just never read anything like it. I found it deeply uncomfortable. I found it very confronting, and I felt the stress, the pressure, the guilt that some of these characters experience. I felt it as I was reading it, and sometimes before going to bed I would see it on the side, and I just knew I'd see that book and I'd be like, if I open this, I'm going into a world where there's no hiding. Like, it's quite uncomfortable. I'm just going to read out the blurb just so you get a little idea of what it's about, because even though it's historical fiction, it has got a little sort of the way it's sort of told. It is also told this story from the modern, from the future, from now, well, from like 2012. So it's got sort of a modern aspect, then it goes back in time as well. Let me read this. Etsy Buchan is an academic who needs to get published. So when a journal written in 1912 by Arthur Buchan, a Lutheran pastor, and her grandfather is discovered within a wall during renovations, she sees her chance. She can uncover the lost secrets of her family and get tenure. As she researches, she comes to learn of her grandfather's life and the life of a Blackfeet called Goodstab, who came to Arthur to share the story of his extraordinary life. She discovers the journal details a slow massacre, a chain of events charting the history of Montana State as it formed. A cycle of violence that leads all the way back to 217 Blackfeet murdered in the snow. A blood-soaked and unflinching saga of the violence of colonial America, a revenge story like no other, and the chilling reinvention of vampire lore from the master of horror. Now, I have never read another Stephen Graham Jones book, but he's been called the master of horror. And there's 2 book covers here. He's got a book called The Only Good Indians and My Heart is a Chainsaw. I imagine they are quite horrific. This guy's amazing. This writer's absolutely amazing. It is a horror book, but not really for the reasons you expect. If anything, it's a reminder that the real horrors in this world are not the monsters under the bed, it's the humans on the bed. I kind of ruined that. That was going to sound quite cool, but you get what I mean. It's the humans, it's the story, it's the stories that of the way humans treat each other. It's horrific, and the way this book is written. It's written very similar. It sort of nods its head a little bit to Bram Stoker's Dracula, I suppose, because it's not done by letters. What's that called? Epistolary style of writing. I should Google it. I'm not going to. Epistolary, I think, is the style of storytelling told via letter. This is similar. It's done via journals, and it's a little nod, I suppose, to the original vampire story. What was I going to say? Oh, I can't remember. I'm also not going to edit this, so sorry. This is what you're watching right now. I'm really sorry. I can't remember what I was going to say. I got too obsessed with the word epistolary. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The letters, the journals, sorry, when you're reading them, they're from the priest. They're from the grandfather, Arthur Buchan, and he speaks like someone who, at the end of the 18th century, would speak. You know, and into the 19th century, into the 20th century. Is that right way around? Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like someone who is, you know, a white man who has sort of grown up living in this land that was brutally taken, and he meets someone who is a Native American, and you end up hearing the way that he speaks. And slowly throughout this story, as the plot is revealed and you're sort of learning who is who and what's happened in the past, you end up getting into this rhythm of this language of how the Native Americans speak to each other and the types of language they use and the way they talk. It's very beautiful and very descriptive and very blunt as well. And it's lovely, and you end up sort of soaking that in, and it becomes a part of this beat of the book, the way it's sort of the tempos of the book. It's quite like you feel like you're in the woods. You're in the woods of America. It's amazing. I think this is you got to be in the right frame of mind for this book. It's pretty heavy. There's some pretty awful things that happen. And when I finished this book, I wrote down in my little journal. What did I write? I wrote down. I'll tell you what I wrote. The whole thing actually. Incredible book. 5 stars. Written in a series of journal entries, we hear the confessions of a vampire through the journal entries of a priest. Horrific and scary, but less to do with the monster and more to do with the genocidal history of America. Masterfully told. Cannot wait to reread. And that's true. I cannot wait to reread this. I think that Stephen Graham Jones has created, I mean, that's got to be the best book he's ever written. It's just incredible. I can't wait to read his other 2 that are sort of sold here. Yeah, I read that, and I read that as I was going on holiday, and I went very lovely. I went to Caribbean, went to St. Lucia in the Caribbean with my wife and some friends, and yeah, had a week and a half off the show, which was lovely, and got to have a bit of a rest. And this was quite weird reading this book whilst I was in this intense heat, and I kind of was at the airport, and I just knew that I was like, okay, I've bought this book. I bought a few others, but I'm not that bothered about reading them. I want to read something that just like, I don't know, just feels right when I'm in this heat. And I was in the bookshop in the airport, one of my favourite places to go in the world. I love a bookshop in an airport. And I picked up this, The Wager by David Gran. The tale of shipwreck, mutiny and murder. And I think someone had recommended The Wager. So when I went to my Goodreads, it said, oh, I want to read this. It was on my like TBR. If you ever see it and it's cheap, buy it because you want to read it. But I didn't know anything about it. And I thought it was fiction. If I'd read this by The Guardian, the beauty of The Wager unfurls like a great sail, one of the finest non-fiction books I've ever read. I would have then learned quite quickly that this was non-fiction. I picked this up and I'll read the back to you just so you get an idea of what this is. 1742. A ramshackle vessel of patched together wood and cloth washes up on the coast of Brazil. Inside are 30 emaciated men, barely alive. Survivors from The Wager, a British vessel wrecked whilst on a secret mission to raid a Spanish treasure-filled galleon. They have an extraordinary tale to tell. 6 months later, an even more decrepit boat comes ashore on the coast of Chile, containing just 3 castaways with their own, very different account of what happened. The 30 sailors who landed in Brazil, they maintain, were not heroes, they were mutineers. As accusations of treachery and murder fly, who is telling the truth? The stakes are life and death, for whoever is guilty could hang. I was like, that sounds epic, that sounds great, and look at that. I think, is that a Turner painting? I think that's a section of one of Turner's paintings. And I was like, that looks epic, let's go. I started reading it, and I was like, oh wow, very clever. David Gran, very clever. You're writing this almost like a non-fiction. Very smart. You're making it feel very real. And then, yeah, after a while, I got to the pages. You can just sort of see here, those lovely little photo pages they have in books. And I was like, oh, no way, it's a true story. It's a true story. This is real. This guy spent 7 years researching it. It's a true story. And then I was like, right, I'm locked in. Spoiler alert, I gave this 5 stars. I think this is one of the best books I've ever read, which I've said about the previous book as well. Both of these will most likely be in my top 10 books of all time. The reason why this non-fiction book is there is because the research that was put into this book is phenomenal. And look how small that is. This story has so much detail. There is actually a lot of journal entries that were kept throughout this shipwrecked. The Wager, this one was shipwrecked on this small island called Wager Island, just off Brazil. And yeah, I mean, people kept journaling even though they were there for like months and months and months, you know, barely surviving on scraps of food and all this sort of stuff. They kept writing their stories, and there's loads of information, but he's just pared it all back, and he's just gone back to the story, and he's just given you all these different story opinions, and you get to sort of shape up your thoughts on who was right, who was in the right, who was behaving inappropriately, who was being courageous, who was not being courageous. You get to make all these decisions. It's so well done. I couldn't believe it. And I was like, I want there to be a film of this. I want there to be a film of this. I just couldn't believe how good it was. And then I looked up here and I went, oh, author of Killers of the Flower Moon. And I was like, what, the DiCaprio movie? Didn't Martin Scorsese shoot that? I was like, that's mad. And then I Googled it and I was like, oh my word, David Gran did a story, again, I don't know, Killers of the Flower Moon, which I think is also about Native Americans as well, which I now have an obsession about learning about. So I want to read that. Yeah, apparently Scorsese picked it up and was like, my God, I'm making a film out of this. And he's doing the same with this. So this is a call out to my agent. Please, can I get seen for this when this gets made? I just want to be a midshipman. I've got no lines. I don't care. I'll have one line. Ahoy. I don't know. Yeah, I thought this was wonderful. It was so perfect where I was reading it as well. You know, I could sort of, where we were by the pool, you could look out over the amazing the Caribbean Sea. So where I was, and I just felt like I was there, shipwrecked. I was sipping on a few beers, cocktails maybe, so maybe it wasn't quite like their experience. But yeah, this was stunning. This was just amazing. It felt like a movie. It's going to be made into a movie by Scorsese, greatest director ever. So wonderful. I can't wait. So good. One of the best books I've ever read, just purely because it's well, first of all, it's fascinating. It's a fascinating story, and the intense detail of how a ship works and how the British Navy sort of operated, and they were sort of the best in their game, and how it all worked. It's quite complex, but he just takes you through it in such a way that you kind of feel that you have mastery over the subject. So just top notch. Really, really recommend that. After that, I then picked up from my local bookshop, Backstory in Balham. I picked up a much anticipated book, a book which is the second in the Hierarchy series. The first one being Not Here. Good. I'm glad. Where is it? It's got to be here. Oh, there we go. Oh gosh, it's so stuck. I've wedged them in too much. How about you go there? I'm not editing this. You got to watch this. I read The Will of the Many earlier this year. I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was absolutely, so good. Apart from that small font, look how small that is. Nightmare. But I thought this was amazing. I actually think I said something similar about these two books. This might even go into the top 10 books of all time. I thought it was that good of a first book for fantasy. I've probably calmed down a little bit on that now. I've still given it 5 stars. I think it's brilliant. So well done. And this is The Strength of the Few. It's a good title, isn't it? The Will of the Many, The Strength of the Few. Oh, it's good titling there, James Arlington. This is book 2. This is an incredible book. I've actually given this 4 stars. So yeah, I have got, I've got opinions. I'm not just like, it's great, it's 5 stars. I love this. I'm not actually going to read, I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read what this is about because you need to have read this, and the less spoilers, the better. I will say this is one of the most ambitious books I've ever read. Whether it fully paid off, I have to read book 3. And that's the only way I'll know. And what will happen is, I've given this 4 stars. Initially, when I finished it, I was like, I think it could be 5 stars. And I was like, no, it's 4 stars. And I know there were certain sections in this book for quite long periods of time where I was struggling. It was like, yep, okay. And that's because this is one story. This is 3 stories for reasons. And it's quite intense to take in. It's a real brave thing for the author to do. I mean, he's really, I imagine at points this must have been an absolute nightmare to write, or maybe not, maybe he was just having a great time. He all had it mapped out. Great cover art. They've completely changed the cover art. I think they've, if they want to try and change this, because I think this was what the hardback originally kind of looked like, even though it's a paperback. But they've made this cover reversible, so you can make it sort of similar to that. in a way, with this weird turquoise. But anyway, I think what will happen is the third book will come out. It might not be a trilogy anymore. It could actually be more books, but the third book will really inform this one. And I think what will happen is, in time, this will be known as one of the greatest books in the series. And this will go up to a 5-star for me when I do a reread when the third book comes out in 2 years' time or whatever. It was masterful in places. Some places I felt I was a bit like, oh, it's a shame, because you really built up loads of cool stuff in here and it kind of disappeared for reasons. And you're not going to get back to it, because this guy, James Allington, goes bold. He goes bold. So I gave this 4 stars. After that, what have I done? After that, I have been listening to the 8th or 7th, can't remember, Dungeon Crawler Carl book, which is called The Inevitable Ruin, which is the last one out at the moment. There'll be more Dungeon Crawler Carl books out in the future, but I think he's been working on some other projects, which is good, great for him. I'm really enjoying it. It's really fun. And I listen to those as I'm commuting or going to the shops, whilst reading other books as well. And that sort of leads me up to where I am and what I'm reading right now. I should have brought it with me. I'm going to go and get it. No, I'll put a link up. Actually, I'm going to go and get it. It's a beautiful cover. I like these covers. 1 sec. Hello. I'm actually recording my video and I'm still attached to the mic, so yeah. Yeah. Oh, right. Hopefully that hasn't disconnected the mic, because that'd be really annoying. Are we still recording? Yes. Great. I'm not editing that out. Sorry. But I'm not doing it. I am now reading Stephen King's 11/22/63. I basically finished The Strength of the Few, and I was in a bit of a slump. I gave it 4 stars, which means it's really good. But I also was a bit like, oh, I don't know. It's a shame. Depending on how book 3 and potentially 4, maybe even 5 go, this could go really high up in my estimations, because it was really hard to write, I think. However, it also had moments where I was a bit like, oh, I'm having to put a lot of work in to like keep up with this story. And that was a bit of a shame. And I kind of wanted to be really safe with the book. I kind of wanted an author to completely like take me under their control and just give me a masterful story. And I thought about all the books I had in that video about books I'm excited to read. And I didn't want to have anything that was like as confronting as Buffalo Hunter. So I didn't want to pick up one of his other books. And I went, you know what? I think I need some Stephen King. And I actually wanted to read more Stephen King over October and November. But it kind of was so beautifully written, but it kind of also freaked me out. But I was like, okay, there is one book on my shelf which isn't really a horror, which is more of a sort of like, I suppose, sci-fi. It's time travel, and that's this book. A guy, for reasons, is able to travel back in time a couple of years before JFK was assassinated, and essentially is given a very soft sort of quest to being like, hey man, try and stop it happening, in a way. This is an amazing book. I'm about a third of the way through, maybe. And I think Stephen King is one of the best writers ever. I've read some really weird things online about people commenting about Stephen King's writing, and perhaps they've read a lot more than me, and they go, oh, he writes very good sort of pop horror books that appeals to the masses and wins New York best time seller, all that sort of stuff. But it's not real writing. He'll never win like a Nobel Literature Award or whatever. And I was just like, what are you talking about? He's so good. He's so good at writing. Like, he tells good stories, and it made me think. I was going, wow, like, I don't know, like, technically, I'm sure you can get books that are maybe technically better written, and everyone could go, yes, this is technically better written. But it depends on the reader and what stories you're listening to and what stories you want to hear and what you need to hear. And this, oh my word, I've just read this at the perfect time. The way he idolizes and loves America, but also hates America, hates the people who have made America a bad place. And he paints this wonderful picture of this sort of the end of the 50s in sort of East Coast America, and then goes down to the south as well. Always with a little reminder as he sort of speaks to you as the reader, going, yeah, sure, the cars are nice, and you know the food's not filled with chemicals and stuff, but a lot of racism, and just kind of gives you this magical world, but kind of roots you in reality again. And I don't know, he's doing it to me again. I mean, I got recommended to read this by Books Are Sick guy, the guy called Nick, but he did say, if you've not read it, read that first. And I'm so grateful that I did that. So if you are thinking about reading this, if I've stoked any interest with my just constant hype about books, do read it first. You don't need to, but it is nice because there is a section where our character visits Derry in Maine. And this is not a horror book, but honestly, I got shivers. And even when we're not in Derry and we're in other parts of America, our character's doing things, he writes in a way where I just get something down my spine. I'm scared. It's so good. It's so well written. It's beautiful. It's a joy to read. I feel so connected to the main character, even though I kind of don't know that much about him. You're kind of going on the journey with him. And you sort of just, I don't know, I just feel very connected to him, and I think it's just really well done. I think it's an amazing book, and if this carries on, if this, even without anything else really happening, if it sort of drifts on like it did for these, how many pages have I read? Yeah, nearly 300 pages. If it just carries on like that, this will also be in my top 10 books of all time. So 3 books in this video that I think are 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5. This is marvelous. This is so good. So yeah, that's what I'm reading. And then after that, gosh knows, I really want to read. I think I said in the last video, I had a book on cricket, one of my first ever videos called Baseball. If anyone is watching the Ashes in Australia at the minute, I probably think I should probably give up on reading about baseball because it appears it hasn't worked. But that's a bit of a negative way of talking about it. But I had a book on cricket called Baseball that I was going to read. I was also starting to read this, Tom Shippey's The Road to Middle Earth. Tom Shippey, the ultimate scholar on all things Tolkien. I started reading that, and I got about, what did I get, 13 pages in, and was like, whoa, this is quite intense. I need to have a bit more brain space to pick this up. Because we're getting into the proper winter now, I know it's not going to get, it's only about 11 degrees out now in mid-December. When we get to January and February, I do want to start this. The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, and the Brothers Gwynne, booktubers that I was talking about, that's their dad. This is their dad, John Gwynne. Who appears on the channel sometimes. This is a proper sort of like high fantasy set in Nordic inspired lands. It's got a dragon on it, and I think it's got some snow covered hills. So we're going to be reading that, in January or February. Apart from that, I'm a bit of a mood reader, and I'm really glad I picked this up. I was very close to picking up a classic, and there's 2 classics that are in my mind at the minute. One of them is right here, and the other one is right here. Perfect. The first one is The Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky. I have never read any Russian classics. Is that true? I've started War and Peace twice, so kind of counts. But I've not. I don't think I have. No, I've never read any Russian classics apart from from theatre stuff. But Chekhov. But Chekhov doesn't really count. I think I need to read a few like literature proper big chunky literature books, and I think Dostoevsky's got a few books that I'm a bit like, oh, I need to read Crime and Punishment, I need to read Brothers Karamazov, and apparently The Idiot is amazing, someone on Instagram said recently. And the next one is this, George Eliot's Middlemarch. This was my mum's favourite book. This was also her copy that she picked up when she joined a book club a number of years ago, and she picked this one up and was like, oh, I studied this at university, but also I just loved it. It was my favourite book of all time. And I kind of got this copy, and I'm like, well, I want to read it. So yeah, that's up there as well. But I really want to take my time with this. I don't want to like rush through it and be like, oh yeah, well done, I read a classic. I want to like really absorb it and take in every page. So that needs to be the right time. Can't rush that one. All right, guys, that's probably it. That's my update. Sorry it's been so long, and I'm not editing this video. I can't. I'm just like, I'm not well. I'm not well. And it's been a pleasure. If you are still watching at this point, well done. Please, please, I beg you, like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you're reading. It honestly, it gives me motivation to make more content when people comment. But also, it's just nice. It's just quite nice. And that's what you're meant to say in these videos as well. Thank you so much, and happy reading. And hopefully, chat soon.